Deadly tropical storm sweeps through the Caribbean. Premier calls snap elections in Bermuda. St. Lucia gets level 1 COVID-19 rating. And some schools set to reopen while others continue to be closed indefinitely. Welcome to this week's edition of CARICOM NewsTime. I am Michelle Nurse to Sankey's off this week. We begin with a bit of sad news. Tropical storm Laura swept through the Caribbean on the 23rd of August, leaving at least 20 dead in Haiti. A 10-year-old girl who was hit by a falling branch was among those killed. President Jovenel Moïse of Haiti says he shares the sorrow of the families whose loved ones were killed during the passage of Tropical Storm Laura. Mainly the south municipalities in Haiti were severely impacted by road blockages, flooding, and extensive agricultural damage. The storm also affected the Dominican Republic, eastern Cuba, the southeastern Bahamas, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. Heavy rainfall caused flooding, landslides, and impassable roads in parts of Jamaica. Bermuda goes to the polls on the 1st of October, almost 2 years ahead of the constitutionally due elections deadline. Bermuda Premier David Burt called the snap elections, saying that the early polls will help the island to focus on rebuilding its battered economy and creating more opportunities for its people.
Don, with the government entering in its 4th year, we had to make an important economic choice. Whether or not we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on multiple more by-elections and then have to pay for a general election, or if it was more financially prudent just to go ahead and have a general election and allow those MPs who wish to retire the opportunity to do so. I chose the option that saves Bermudian taxpayers money. I also thought about the fact of the incredible unity of which the country has experienced, and then the thought of 20 months of back and forth in a series of by-elections, as we saw, which happened a couple of weeks ago when the opposition, one of their members resigned. Instead of subjecting Bermudians to months and months of division, I thought it would make more sense to call a general election that allowed the government chosen by the people to focus squarely on our economic recovery. And I just basically chose to get on with it. As I said, we're in our 4th year of government, and the truth is that everyone knows that tough times lay ahead. And so the government needs the backing of the people to make the hard decisions today that will benefit all Bermudians in the long run. And I do not believe that Bermudians need back and forth. They need to decide who they want to lead them going forward so that we can get on with the job.
Bermuda is one of the 5 associate members of the Caribbean community. CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque has congratulated Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, on his victory in the general elections of the 10th of August. As you begin this new term of office, you can be assured that the Caribbean community and its Secretariat offer full support as your government seeks to build upon the achievements of the first term and continues its efforts to improve the lives of its citizens and the wider community, the Secretary General said. He said he looks forward to Prime Minister Rowley's ongoing involvement and guidance as a member of the Conference of Heads of Government. St. Lucia's management of the COVID-19 pandemic and reopening of its economy have placed the country among just 8 others globally, which the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has characterized as level 1. That's the lowest level COVID-19 rating. The rating is based on the reduction or stabilization of cases within the last 28 days, the island's government information service says. St. Lucia's safe and strategic approach to reopening its economy saw the country welcoming its first commercial flight on the 9th of July with strictly enforced protocols. For the period July to August 2020, St. Lucia welcomed close to 6,000 travelers through the approved ports of entry, of which more than 4,000 were visitors. St. Lucia Prime Minister Alan Chasney says this is even more validation of our country's success in the management of COVID-19. We have to keep following our protocols and ensuring that pre-testing is done before visitors arrive in St. Lucia, he says. This takes the support and cooperation of all the stakeholders in the travel industry, he adds. Meanwhile, the government of Guyana has allocated $4.5 billion to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, as confirmed cases and deaths in the country continue to rise. There are now more than 1,000 confirmed cases and more than 30 deaths in the country. President Irfan Ali announced that funds are being mobilized from the World Bank, the OPEC Fund for International Development, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank, totaling $60 million. The government also received a grant from the government of India to the tune of $2 million. Guyana's Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, indicated that some of the money will be allocated for the procurement of items to be used in the infectious diseases hospital, which will serve as an isolation facility. In Jamaica, where cases have also surpassed 1,000, Prime Minister Andrew Holness suspended traditional campaign activities ahead of elections on the 3rd of September and announced additional measures aimed at curbing the spread of the virus, including new curfew times and stricter monitoring. Cases are also increasing across the Bahamas, which has more than 1,700 cases, and in Trinidad and Tobago and Suriname. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to cause serious disruptions in the education systems across the Caribbean community. While school leaving examinations have been completed, the education sector is grappling with a range of challenges, including the uncertainties related to the safe reopening of schools and how to bridge the gap of uneven access by students to online educational opportunities. Early childhood education centers in Antigua and Bermuda have had to shut their doors because of mounting expenses resulting from the pandemic. Education Officer with responsibility for early childhood education, Ms. Embler Spencer, says there are now less than 90 operating early childhood facilities in Antigua and Bermuda, 3 of which are government-owned. In Barbados, the Ministry of Education is holding consultations with teachers and other stakeholders to get their input on the safe reopening of schools in September. Over in Dominica, the Education Ministry is working with service providers to ensure that all learning institutions have internet access. Schools there were expected to open as planned on the 1st of September. St. Lucia proposes to reopen schools to students on the 7th of September, according to Chief Education Officer Dr. Fiona Meyer.
As I said previously, this is a fluid situation. We as St. Lucians are no different to all parts of the world that are struggling to find the best course of action. So it is with this in mind that we continue to engage, we continue to consult, we continue to be reflective upon our practice moving forward. Many of our esteemed educators, both retired and present, continuously speak about the options and the importance of having children back within a safe environment. And for that, we applaud them. Parents, your support is paramount. Without it, we will not be able to attain the goals of bringing our children back safely. We are very pleased that we were able to develop and build upon, knowing that we had run successfully the reopening with our Form 5s and our Grade 6 students, and so this is a continuation in terms of supporting the educational attainment of our children. At the moment, our proposed reopening, Permanent Secretary Michelle Charles spoke of the 7th of September, and our teachers usually come in for a preparation week, which is the 31st of August.
Other countries in CARICOM, including Guyana and Jamaica, have delayed the reopening of schools and have indicated that there will be a blended approach to delivering education.
All schools shall remain closed to face-to-face teaching for the month of September, while we continue to review and evaluate the evolution of the disease and our schools' readiness. The government does not believe, however, that the inability to reopen schools physically necessarily means the inability to deliver education otherwise. We are aware that some parents, teachers, and schools have engaged their children academically by various means, and we roundly applaud and are deeply grateful for those efforts. We encourage all to continue to do this where possible from as early as possible. And if you need help doing that, let us know. Going forward, we know that no single approach will provide regular and effective learning opportunities to our children across the regions and across the grades. We will therefore have to use blended, multifaceted learning approaches in the coming months. We will have to tailor our approach based on the epidemiological patterns, physical spacing, internet connectivity, television reception, teacher availability, and I'm really only naming a few of the considerations we'll have to have. To this end, we are working with the Ministry of Health to urgently develop a safety protocol for schools across the country. And we're actively and dedicatedly pursuing getting our schools physically ready. We're developing relevant curriculum content for delivery on the Learning Channel and are working to actually get the channel broadcasting widely in geographical areas where it has stopped broadcasting or has never broadcast before. We're working to deliver education on the internet, and we're developing learning kits and packages with print and other material to develop specific categories, to deliver to specific categories of students. We're also going to be retraining our teachers as far as we can to deliver education differently. Once we begin face-to-face schooling, we may have to adjust our school term, and we may have to have an extended school week, and we may have to do rotations of students and teachers. These are all matters we're still examining, albeit with urgency. We will let you know as we make those important decisions.
No date has been set for reopening of schools in Belize, but preparations are ongoing. The pandemic forced the closure of schools across the region since March. Stakeholders have agreed there is need for continuous engagement and actions to mainstream biodiversity in economic sectors in CARICOM, as the Secretariat ended its 5-part webinar series on the environment recently. The series, which was launched on the 19th of May and ended on the 11th of August, was pivotal as the community crafts its position on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. It saw experts in biological diversity management and negotiation from around the hemisphere sharing knowledge and best practices with regional negotiators, policy advisors, decision makers, and other multi-sectoral groups so that they can be, among other things, well informed on key areas of the zero draft text of the Global Biodiversity Framework. Director within the CARICOM Human and Social Directorate, Ms. Helen Royer, says the CARICOM Secretariat is very pleased with the successful outputs from the series. The webinars were coordinated by the CARICOM Secretariat in collaboration with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission and the Government of Antigua and Barbuda as the group of Latin America and the Caribbean members of the Conference of Parties Bureau of the Convention of Biological Diversity.
The participation, engagement, and commitment from all member states augurs well for the continuous levels of interventions needed to put forward the positions of the Caribbean region during the negotiations under the Convention of Biological Diversity. Some big wins for us in these webinars included, but not limited to, the fact that most of the presentations were done by regional practitioners who have had an informed perspective on the subject matter and who are actively working on this area, both at member states and international level. Also encouraging was the willingness of member states to commit to the biological diversity agenda.
Ms. Royer lauds the successful implementation of the webinars, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The implementation of these webinars especially at this time, highlights CARICOM's continued commitment to promoting an urgency of action at the highest level in support of a post-2020 biodiversity framework that contributes to the reshaping of the Caribbean region's vision for biodiversity.
Young people in the Caribbean are being exposed to educational and professional opportunities in the maritime sector and blue economy through a series titled Maritime Link Up Beyond Borders webinars. The 5 webinars are being held by the American Caribbean Maritime Foundation in association with the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities and CARICOM Youth Ambassadors. The webinars were launched on the 19th of August. There will be subsequent sessions on the 9th and 23rd of September and the 7th and 21st of October. The sessions are free to students and educators and feature the top brass of some of the biggest cargo and cruise brands as presenters. Speaking at the opening of the series, Minister of the Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs of Barbados, Kirk Humphrey, said the region is at a crossroads and there's an opportunity now to manifest the promise the maritime industry has in the Caribbean space. Participants will have the opportunity to apply for a full tuition scholarship funded by the American Caribbean Maritime Foundation. It will be awarded at the final webinar on the 21st of October. The recipient, who must have attended the first 3 webinars, may study at the Caribbean Maritime University in Jamaica or the University of Trinidad and Tobago. The scholarships are open to young people from all CARICOM member states and associate members. The application can be downloaded at the ACMF website at acmfdn.org. For these and other stories, visit the CARICOM website at caricom.org or the CARICOM news site at today.caricom.org. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please continue to be safe, help to flatten the curve, and see you next time.